Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Valentine here with Ted Ings, David Roemer, and Don Andres. Ted, we have a new partner with us at the Roundtable today.
Sarah, it's so exciting. And I want to thank you, Sarah, David Roemer, and Don Andres for being with us today. Sarah, thinking back, I can't remember any segment on any Fixed Ops Roundtable in the last 5 or so years where we talked about the collision department. And Sarah, that's a whole new area that we're going to open up here today with David Roemer.
It's so exciting. And David, Collision Vehicle Exchange is doing some incredible things in the market. And I can't wait to hear all of your insights regarding it.
Well, thank you, Sarah and Ted. It's an honor to be here, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, David, to start things off, a lot of people are probably wondering, what is Collision Vehicle Exchange?
Well, Collision Vehicle Exchange actually does three things. The dealers decide for themselves that they want to do one, two, or all three of them. But first, we make it seamless for dealers to consistently sell new and used cars to their collision center customers whose car has been totaled. Second, we make it seamless for dealers to sell new and used cars to collision center customers whose car has not been totaled. And third, we can let customers know that the dealer offers this service, which drives more customers into their collision repair center.
Wow. Brilliant, David. David, give us the backstory. How did you come up with this idea?
Well, Ted, I spent 34 years working in car dealerships, and I held many positions. A few of them being collision center manager, sales manager, and ultimately a general manager. I initially created the Collision Vehicle Exchange process because I wanted to sell more cars. And since I understood the collision center, I was able to make it work. I used paper forms that were passed around the dealership. And although we sold a lot of cars, my manual process required a lot of management. Otherwise, my estimators would stop sending referrals and the process would slowly grind to a halt. I'm sure many of our viewers can relate. But we've removed those obstacles. We created an app that pretty much manages itself and benefits the sales department, the collision center, and most important, the customers. And our app couldn't have come at a better time because dealers are exiting the collision repair business at an alarming rate.
Well, David, to just touch on what you just said, there's a lot of dealers that are considering that. So why are so many dealers getting out of the collision repair business?
Well, this industry has changed a lot in just the past few years. The collision industry has been gobbled up, I would call it, by the consolidators like Caliber Collision, Gerber Collision, Crash Champions, and some others. They're basically taken over because many of them are factory certified. The insurance companies prefer them. And as a result, the consolidators now do more collision repair work in the United States than all dealership collision repair centers combined.
Wow. Don, let me come to you for your expertise on this. Is dealers getting out of the collision repair business? Is that a good idea?
Well, it's funny. On the surface, it's a lot of work, right? Whether you're finding qualified technicians and you're working with the sometimes demanding insurance companies, on the surface, you would say, well, maybe that's just a challenge I don't want to be in anymore. But the rippling effect of that is huge because we sell a lot of parts to a collision shop. We are in control of that. And the markup that insurance companies pays is far more than a markup we might get. Let's say that we end up selling to a MSO, some kind of a larger firm like that. They negotiate with us to buy the parts from us, but it's going to be at a very slim amount of gross. And the end result is we're dealing with now very little gross and typically a large returns that come in because that's part of that relationship. So we lose this from a fixed ops standpoint, all the labor gross that was generated. We lose all that parts gross that was generated. And by the way, we sent the customer to another place. Now that ability to retain them, that ability to sell them another vehicle becomes less effective. They're now out in the marketplace as opposed to in our building. So I think it's important to pause. I think it's important to look at a product like this and say, well, maybe all the headaches that I'm dealing with could in fact get smoothed over. And with a little bit of effort, we could be really in that game, and of course selling cars to to our customers, which is a important part of the equation.
David, how does collision vehicle exchange really help these dealers that want to keep in the collision repair business? How does it help them compete with these consolidators?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, there's three things that we do. The first is seamlessly helping dealers consistently sell new and used cars to their collision center customers whose cars have been totaled. Because about 8% of cars that enter their collision center, or every 12th car that goes into their collision center, is going to be a total loss. And this can give an idea of what kind of opportunities are walking out the back door every day at their collision center. By using this part of the app, this first function, it helps dealers start to see revenue growth immediately. We call this part of the app Collision Vehicle Exchange for total loss, right? The second is we make it seamless for dealers to sell new and used cars to their collision center customers who have not been totaled, right? But they're just damaged. Because many customers would rather trade in their damaged car than have it fixed. And we know this because about 50% of cars that have been repaired get sold or traded within 12 months. So we call this part of the app Collision Vehicle Exchange for non-total loss. And the third part, if dealers choose to have us do this as well, we take this unique message that the customers can indeed trade in their damaged car, and we advertise it using different technologies, but we do our best to locate customers who are in need of collision repair work and get that message out to them. Because right now the consolidators have figured out they're the darling of the insurance industry. They're doing, they've already gobbled up more market share than all the dealers combined. The dealers are playing catch up on this deal. So it's not surprising to me that so many are selling, but if they do want to compete, we've got the only process I know about it that gives them a real fighting chance.
Sarah, I want to get your perspective on the dealership side. David's right and Don's right. These customers, what have you seen?
Well, Ted, as David was talking about how seamless this app is and how, the customers that are experiencing a total loss or a non-total loss, both of those situations are very full of tension for a customer. And so a lot of times customers are wanting guidance in that process to understand, they don't typically total a vehicle every day. So they're not familiar with how do I walk through this? What are the ramifications of this? How do I go about navigating this complex environment? And so I'm just thinking about, the BDC in that perspective and managing not only communications within a collision center and a service department, but then also the sales department. There's a lot of opportunities for customers to get lost in that conversation. And as David was describing, if you're sending this customer to Caliber or outside of your ecosystem, now you're opening up a whole other conversation where they're speaking to somebody else that may have tie-ins in other dealerships or other places in the market. And so you just completely lose control of the conversation. And really, that's another opportunity for your dealership to retain these customers. If you provide a good experience navigating, something that they didn't expect to happen, now you have this customer back in your service department. Now you've got them back in that whole retail environment. So it's incredible, Ted, what David is describing. This is just revolutionary for the industry.
David, does that sound pretty accurate from your experience and your perspective?
Sarah, that is spot on. I mean, you said it better than me. I think you should come to work with us, but I wouldn't do that, Ted. But that's you said it perfectly. And your experience in the BDC and dealing whenever customers get handed from department to department, it does get a little hairy and it can get confusing. And I just saw as a general manager, so many opportunities got lost, and that's what drove me to create this app. It was really conversations that I had with friends in the industry that were struggling with their collision centers. And, I knew I had figured out the sale part of it later. And I kind of connected the dots and said, wait a minute, if I help dealers do this, it gives them a unique message to help their collision center compete with the consolidators. Hey, we can really help the dealers out. And it started by me telling some friends, somebody needs to do this. Somebody needs to do this. And finally, one of them looked me in the eye and said, why don't you do it? And Collision Vehicle Exchange was born. So
Don Andres, you work with so many dealers today across the country and have very deep experience in fixed ops departments and running dealerships. Let me get your take. Don, what do you think? Will this work?
Yeah, I go back to when I was a general manager and trying to get a salesperson to go back into the collision shop and talk to customers that had serious damage about maybe trading out of it instead of waiting the 6 weeks in a rental car and things of that nature. Many of them fall out of love right after that happens with their vehicle. And so, there's a lot that goes into that, right? I mean, you have the value of the car is now affected by this. So to have a conversation early on was something I thought was great. I couldn't get the sales staff to do it because of things like a repair order might get closed out 30 days later. The insurance company didn't pay for part of it. And now there's this money lingering around that goes into chargebacks, and nobody had a good attitude about it. And so it didn't work. From this aspect alone, this closing of the loop, this idea where everybody sees everything, the numbers are right on the app. There's nothing, including the office staff, by the way, including the office staff. And then, of course, there's even this idea of compensating that estimator that maybe prompted this whole thing. So we still get the business. We still get the car fixed. We can decide what we want to do, whether we want to put it on the front line, whether we want to wholesale it. But we now have a happy customer in a vehicle. So that's the GM side of me. As far as the fixed op side of me, Ted, again, I get back to parts penetration and part credits return credits coming from the manufacturer, and the selling of parts is such a big part of a fixed operations. And now suddenly we've really hurt ourselves in that. And here we are trying to have service absorption, trying to get the back end operations to be a big part of paying the bills of the dealership. And now we have decided that there isn't value in that aspect, I think is a mistake. So I go back to this idea, if we can keep them busy, everybody wins. And I think Vehicle Exchange does a great job of that. Now, I'll make one last point, and maybe we can get into it in a little bit. This is a great lead generator for vehicles that are at the outside collision centers. The way the app works that David has figured out is impressive. And you have a motivated buyer now because we know that they're a motivated buyer, as opposed to a traditional third-party vendor sending you a lead. And getting back to what you're saying, Sarah, this is exactly if you can say the right words to a customer like this, things move pretty fast.
David, this is amazing and really brings it full circle. We've talked about the dealerships operating historically for years in silos. Sales is separate than service, separate than parts, and so on. David, no matter where a dealership is today, there is benefit in reaching out and learning more about what you do, because you can help them with their different situations.
Oh yeah, if they have a collision repair center, I would love to talk to them. Like most things in life, right? It all starts with a conversation. Just give me a call, email me, whatever, and just let me know what you're trying to accomplish, and I'll let you know what I know, what my experience is, what my app is capable of, and if it can help you, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. But it doesn't hurt to have a conversation. And I just love this industry. I've been in it my entire career, and I just feel like I'm really trying to help the dealers to get through this really tough time in the collision repair industry, and a very challenging time. But I think if we just think smart and we act courageously, I think we can compete and win. And isn't that what we dealers do? So yeah, if you want to have a conversation, reach out to me. I'd love to talk.
And Sarah, I would imagine a lot of dealers or a lot of managers watching today may have questions as well, okay, along the process. David, would that be okay if folks reach out to you with their questions, and maybe you can offer some guidance as well?
Of course, of course. Like I said, I think you put my email and phone number on the screen here. Reach out to me, or you can go to collisionvehicleexchange.com and click on the contact us and reach us that way. Reach me on LinkedIn. I mean, however you want to get a hold of me, just reach out to me. I try to be as accessible as possible, but I will always get back to you, and I will always, just have the conversation and tell you everything I know. My only motive here is I want to help dealers, navigate this very competitive environment that we found ourselves in.
Sarah, I'm excited. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the first time we've talked about something like this. Your perspective, Sarah Van Tine, on collision vehicle exchange and some of the opportunities this can open up for the Fixed Ops Roundtable dealers.
Well, Ted, as David mentioned, there's a component that I find really compelling with collision vehicle exchange, and that's that David really gives you an analysis of what's going on in your business and all the opportunities that you have. And so, if you're thinking about looking at this from that perspective of, what's the low hanging fruit? How do I maybe just start dabbling into this and kind of refine my processes as I go? You can start looking at those total loss vehicles. Those customers are doing something. They're reaching out to your sales department, they're reaching out to other dealerships, they're shopping online. They have to get out of this car, and the insurance is cutting them a check. They're a captivated buyer. They're going to make a decision. So, this is a huge opportunity for dealers to just get started there. And then, if they want to get into the non total loss and they want to continue that journey and those processes with the customers that are going to have the vehicle repaired, and now they're considering maybe selling or trading it or discussing that opportunity to do so, then David also has a solution and analysis for that. So you can really look at this entire equation as you were describing, Ted. This removes the silos from the customer experience, and it just helps keep that customer engaged in your business.
Yeah, Sarah, thank you for sharing that, because just to reiterate that, whether the dealers decide to go with my solutions or not, I think the information they'll find in the analysis that I do, where I'm able to show them when customers in their market do get in accidents, where are they going and why? I show them, which I have the ability to do, where the insurance companies are sending their customers. So I can create a unique action plan for each dealer that shows them, this is what's happening in your market, and this is what's happening to your customers, and this is how we're going to go about getting them back. And again, and whether they decide to go with our solution or not, I think they're going to find the information to be something that they've never seen before, and I think they'll find it very valuable.
All right. So, David, one more time, give us the best way to reach out to Collision Vehicle Exchange. How does our audience at the Fixed Ops Roundtable learn more and get the next step?
Our website, collisionvehicleexchange.com.
Okay.
Email me directly at that's David letter R for my last name, Roemer, davidr@collisionvehicleexchange.com, or call me on my direct line, 727-888-5000. So either way, just get a hold of me. Like I say, I'd love to help.
And I've noticed you very active now on LinkedIn and on social media. So, David, congratulations to you on this overnight success, which has taken, I know, many, many years to put together. But it seems the combination is brilliant. And if it's okay, David, Sarah and I would like to invite you and Don back later this year. And let's talk about this some more and maybe get some dealers involved and learn what they're doing and some of the best practices. And David, how we can help our audience at the Fixed Ops Roundtable even more.
Oh, I'd be honored. Thank you, Ted. I appreciate that.
Yep, and Don, thank you.
Enjoyed.
Don, thank you for coming today and giving your perspective as well.
Yeah, when you find a gem, right? Every so often we find a gem, and because it all made sense, I started spending some time understanding who David was and the product, and been incredibly impressed. So,
Sarah, I'm impressed as well. This is really, of all the folks who come on the roundtable, a lot of times folks, don't have all their, all their practices and all the things together. Sarah, David's got it. And we knew that early on.
It's going to be exciting, Ted, to see how this continues to evolve and all the best practices that David will help share.
All right, everybody. So David Roemer from Collision Vehicle Exchange. You can reach out to him on the web. You see the URL at the bottom scrolling there. Email, telephone, and on social media. So David Roemer, everybody, from Collision Vehicle Exchange with Don Andres, Sarah Van Tine, and I, here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.